Hi, Janice. Good morning. My laptop is lagging. Hi, Teresa. We may be doing this with just my phone. Good morning, Vesta. Yeah, it's lagging. I know it wants to do a scan, but now is not the right time to want to do a scan. So we're going to see what happens. Worst comes to worst, I can't look over at my laptop, but we can still get through today's live. I do believe. I wouldn't see why there would be a problem. I don't know. I have missed everyone. And oh my goodness, thank you so much for understanding about last Thursday. It ended up being quite the morning. The Great Lakes Piping Plover Recovery Effort came down from Michigan, and they banded our 4 chicks. We got to watch that. At first we were kind of from afar, but then once they had the chicks, we were invited to walk out onto the beach and stand back and observe the process. So that was exciting. So I missed all of you so much, but oh my goodness, what an opportunity I had to see these chicks banded. And now they have their bling, their color-coded bands on their legs. And hopefully, you know, when they migrate south, someone might see them on a beach, take a picture, and inquire about what the color of the bands mean. And if there's any numbers that can be seen on the metal band, then we could get information back to us that says, hey, one of your chicks was seen on a beach in Florida or Georgia, South Carolina, Texas. And we might know who it is. The 4 chicks have names. They were named after the indigenous peoples that were in our area. The tribes, the Indian tribes were the Ottawa, Maumee, Erie, and there's Kickapoo. So the chicks have names. Those names are coordinated with a colored dot that's on their orange band. So, you know, it could be, hey, Mommy ended up in Florida, you know, so it's going to be exciting. Having them banded and color-coded, hopefully we get some reports back in the future. Hello, Jean. Let's see who else is on here. Hi, Sharon. And Kathy. Kathy, thanks for watching, everybody. If you're just tuning in, I was just going over, you know, my update on our piping plovers. They are actually, the chicks are taking flight practice right now. We have seen them take anywhere from a 12-inch flight to several feet. We're thinking that within a week they will be flying, and that's a good thing because, you know, they share the beach with people. And it's better that they can fly away from a situation that they're not comfortable with than running their little legs off at this point. So it's all good. It's very, anxiety levels can be high, especially when you're trying to find all 4 and you can't. But it's been such a rewarding experience. I can't wait to do it again next year. I hope that they come back and nest again. And we will be so much more prepared and we'll have a better understanding of the whole process. So it's going to be really exciting. So, oh, and these are the t-shirts that when you're a monitor, we wear those on shift so that everybody recognizes that this color means that we are a monitor. So it has Nish and Nellie on it, and Nish is actually goose-stepping Nellie. This is how he courts her. So I just wanted to show you our volunteer t-shirts. So I had that on today. Okay. Well, you're probably wanting to move on to the project. I'm going to flip the camera down, show you some happy mail that I got. And it's easier to do it that way than try and hold it up and I don't know which way to go. So I'm going to flip the camera over. We'll do some happy mail, and then we'll get into the project. So again, hold on. Make sure that we can see everything. And I have to flip one more thing that way. There we go. Okay. Okay. I think this is going to be good. Alrighty. So, 2 weeks ago, when we did this Star in a Star, I was going through some old quilt blocks that I did last summer when I was practicing doing paper quilt blocks. And it's amazing how far you can see that you've come when you find things like this. But last summer I did this block, and I mean, I painstakingly cut every little tiny, every square, half-inch square had to be cut. And then when, you know, just over the process of learning, this is the one that we did. And what I had learned was I don't have to do every single half-inch square. When we did a 1-inch square and made a half square triangle, but then quartered it again, that gave us the these triangles that we needed to put here, instead of doing half square triangles and having so many little pieces to glue down. So in finding this and then seeing where, you know, just by practicing and learning different things, this one was so much easier, and it had a lot less pieces than this one. So I just wanted to show you that, because when we go back and look at our cards that we made, even, you know, if you've been making cards a long time, if you go back and look at your beginning cards and see where you have come today with your creativity, or you know, you went from a beginner to a much more advanced card maker. It's really fun sometimes to go back and find these things and see just how far you've come in your creativity. So I just thought that that was interesting. So I wanted to show you that. And then this is Nish. There is a local watercolor artist from Bowling Green who, she watercolored Nish, our Papa piping plover. She came out to the park and gave these to the volunteers as a thank you for the hours that the volunteers are putting in monitoring the chicks. So I got my watercolor of Nish, and I just wanted to show you how beautiful this is. So I wanted to share that with you. This will get framed and put on my bird wall of other bird art that I have. So that's Nish in watercolor. And then Happy Mail. So I love this. Joanne Foley sent this card to me. And in the little note that she sent me, she said, as you always say, took my inspiration from, in quotation marks. Well, she took her inspiration for the card from a Facebook post on the Alabama Barn Quilt Trail page. Here she used the Berry Delightful DSP, and she did her strawberry. So this is actually a barn quilt inspired card. And then there was something else that she said here. Oh, she says, I think this is an original and only one. She says, I appreciate it even more what goes into your planning for a card to share with us on Thursdays when she was designing her card. So thank you, Joanne. I love the time that it takes for me to plan a card to share with everybody. And I just had to chuckle when the realization came to you, like, oh boy, there's a lot that goes into this. So I want to thank you for this beautiful, beautiful card. I just love it. So Joanne, thank you for that. And then Mary Augustine, when I saw all of these poppies, or not poppies, the pansies. Remember when we did the card, the pop-up card, and on the inside I had fussy cutted some pansies, and I made the comment that I'm not very good at it. Bless her heart, look what she did for me. She die cutted all of these pansies for me, and even the tiny pansies. I just was so excited and touched that she took the time to do these for me. And then her card that came with it, I've had this bundle on my wish list, and for sure I want it now. The simplicity of this card really is striking. This is, she has done the stamping and die cutted the image, but with this white on white, with just the pale papaya mat here. And you know, just colored in with the pale papaya using the jewels and the pale papaya ribbon. This is just a really stunning card. And, you know, sometimes you need to get the product in front of you to really appreciate it. I don't have this bundle. And I wondered about what the dies looked like. And the dies just cut beautifully. Just cut beautifully. So it's going to be a must-have for me now that I actually have it in my hands and can see how beautiful the dies are. So I wanted to show that. Doris, good morning to you. I glanced over and Janice is talking about how many barn quilts that she seen. And I really would love, I wish everybody was closer, because I would love to take you on a tour of the barn quilts that we have right in the next county. It would take at least a day to do them all. Maybe we would have to do an overnight, get a block of rooms or something like that and do an overnight and cut it in half, do half one day, half another day. I got a lot of good places we could go to eat. So maybe that should be something that maybe next year we could plan to do if anyone's interested. Tony, hello. Joining a little late. Well, we haven't started yet because I'm busy gabbing. But, oh my goodness, Jean, do we have quilt shops near me? Yes, we do. We could do quilt shops. We could do the barn quilt trail. This might turn into a 3-day excursion if anybody would be up for it. I wish I had a bigger home that I could just house everybody, but I think we might have more fun if we just, you know, stayed in the same hotel and could just hang out for 3 days. Give me some feedback on what you think about that idea. So Mary, thank you so much for this beautiful card, for adding another bundle that I must have, and for taking the time to die cut the pansies for me. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. A quick reminder that August 3rd, the mini catalog goes live, celebration goes live. So I sent out a whole bunch of catalogs that you had requested. So be ready for that. And the paper, the DSP that's on sale for the month of July, you still have a couple of weeks. There's 9 different papers that are on sale at 15% off. So you still have time for that. So we'll set this stuff aside. And what we'll do is we'll bring in our project for today. Did you find it helpful that I shared the PDF before the live? Tony and Mary both had posted their cards that they did from the PDF. And I'm really glad they did, because I took an idea from Mary so that I didn't have to scrap my triangles that I cut out of the square. I didn't have to just like throw them away. I took some inspiration from Mary there. But I'm just wondering if by seeing the PDF before I do the live, you have a chance to read it over, and hopefully the live will answer any questions that maybe you had from the PDF that I wrote. A lot of us are visual learners. I try to include, maybe, some might think I include too many pictures, but if you're a visual learner, that's what you need. So I have no problem putting too many pictures in a PDF, because that's how I learn when I look at patterns. So Beth loved the PDF. Tony says it was very helpful. The pics were great. Vesta says it was helpful. Okay, great. Getting some really nice comments there. Okay, I'm on to something. I keep trying, and I'm so busy right now with the plovers. I am trying to stay ahead of the game. Here in a couple of weeks, they're going to migrate. They're going to leave. And then I will have a lot of time on my hands to really provide as much information to you guys about patterns and work up some new cards. I can't wait to put in a new order so that I can have new designer series paper to work with. You're probably tired of seeing the hand-penned designer series paper. It's one of my favorites. And really, I just work with what I got right now, because there's other things taking up my time. There's 4 little feather balls out there that need us. So let's go into the project. This is the 2D quilt block. I have had this saved on my Pinterest board for so long, and I'm telling you, up until the other day, I still couldn't understand the directions. John Peterson did this pattern for Authentique paper back in 2013. And I don't want to take the credit for this, because I actually saw somebody else do it. But for the longest time, I still couldn't understand how it was done. But then a light bulb went off the other day. And I thought, you know what, this is going to be Thursday's card, because it actually isn't as complicated as I was making it out to be. So I wanted to share that with you. So this is just a matter of folding our paper, cutting away some of the paper, and then just laying it out to where we have this 2D effect. Now, if you wanted to, you could tack down your flower petals here if you wanted. And it will, when you go to mail it, you can put this in and keep it all flat, and then it'll just kind of pop up when your person opens the card. So that is what we're going to do today. And again, we're using a Z fold, something simple, a simple fold that really showcases some square quilt blocks really nicely. Okay, sorry about that. Somebody tried calling in. This was the first card that I did, and I had just, a blank canvas here for, stamping either a sentiment inside or just making this a blank note card where I could write. Then I saw Mary use her 4 triangles that we're going to cut away from our square. She utilized those in the 4 corners of the inside of her card. So that got me to thinking. I didn't want to throw my squares away either. We try to use as much of our designer series paper and cardstock as we can. So the second card that I did, after seeing her inspiration, now look how different the feel is just by changing the color of our card base. Here we have Highland Heather. This is the Evening Evergreen. Changes the feel of the card. So what I did was I gave some prairie points, mock prairie points, to the inside of my card and just put the triangles that I cut here and flipped 2 of the 4 over. And just utilize those instead of either stashing them away or discarding them. So we have a quilt pattern that is continuing on into the inside of our card. Now I have a lot of designer series paper going on this side of the front of my card. That's why I put my prairie points on this side to kind of balance out the designer series paper. Hi Holly, good morning. Okay, I was just reading through some of the comments. So that's another idea that you could use for your triangles. Again, Mary put hers in the 4 corners, gave it a beautiful look also. I also noticed that the cards that were shared that they made over on the Quilt Cards and More group page, they actually finished off the plain cardstock areas with more designer series paper, and I love that. Again, I did finish off the back of the card. I'm really, really liking finishing the back. So, but they were taking it one step. Look at all this empty space that if you wanted to use more designer series paper, you could. You could make it very, very colorful. So that was my second attempt. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the block first, and then we will put our card together. I am going with my card base. I'm going to go with Pale Papaya, yet another and a different paper from the hand pen designer series paper. So going with yet another feel to see what this will look like when we're done. So I'm going to bring in the pieces that I need to make the block. Just going to set, and I already did some of these ahead of time so that it wouldn't take so long, but I'm going to leave one of each of the pieces that we need to make our flower undone so that we can do it together. So I have, our finished block is going to be 3.5 inches square. I cut a piece of grid paper, and you don't have to use grid paper, you could use copy paper. I cut it just one line over on a ruler. I cut it just a tad bigger than the 3.5 inch square, because what I found when I made my first one, in my cutting that I did for the pieces that create the flower, my cutting was a little off, and my flower ended up bigger than the base that I was gluing it down to. So it's not going to hurt to have your base a little bit larger, because we're going to trim the block down. When my pieces got bigger than my base, I had to pay attention to where I was putting my liquid adhesive, because I didn't want the glue hanging off of my base and then getting on other things. So it doesn't hurt to be just a little bit larger. My 2.5 inch square, this can be designer series paper, it could be cardstock, whatever you want to use. I am going to adhere that, and I'm just going to eyeball centering it. This is going to give us the center of our flower. Now, when I did my first quilt block, they had a very large square, but and they used it as their base, but you just covered most of it up. So I thought, well, let's just save our designer series paper a little bit and make it smaller, but big enough that it you know, we have the coverage we need with just a little bit more to layer our other pieces on, but that we're not wasting something that big. So I'm just going to glue that down. We'll set that aside. Now the pieces that you need a rectangle and you need a square to make your flower. And if you look at the PDF, if you orientate the pieces as it's shown in the PDF, it'll make it a lot easier instead of just picking up a piece and then, you know, just folding it and then find that you folded the wrong corner, and when you start to lay it out, you've got one that doesn't go with the flow, so to speak. So with our rectangle, and you also need to decide, because the designer series paper is double-sided, is what side of your designer series paper do you want to see on this flap here? Because one side is going to be background, and then the other side is going to be your flap. I'm going to do this one a little differently. So I want my flap to be this side of my designer series paper. So if I want this to match, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this lower left-hand corner. Now, if you're not right-handed, this will be different for you, but I'm just going to bring this up, and I want it to meet halfway when I bring it up here. So the easy way I did that was I brought it down to my grid paper, and I'm going to turn it counterclockwise, and using my squares on my grid paper, I know that 1, 2, 3, 4 of these little squares equals an inch. My piece is 1 inch by 2 inch. Again, I want to bring this corner here, and I'm just going to fold it up to the 1 inch line there on my grid paper. And then I'm going to crease. So that gives me my halfway. And I'll bring in my bone folder, so give this a nice crease. And you're going to do that to all 4 of your rectangles. So now we have our 4 rectangles. Oh lordy, where's my other one? They were all just here. Oh, over here. I had it on my thing. Yeah, so all of these are going the same direction. Okay? Are there any questions about that? Okay. Oh, Doris. If they don't want to see it, they won't open it. I love it. Yeah, maybe they want to be surprised. So there are our rectangle pieces, and they are folded back. Okay, now we're going to set those aside. For our square, this creates, this is this piece right here. We're going to fold it on the diagonal, but I'm going to show you which piece to cut and how you can remember which piece to cut. Because if you cut the wrong side, it doesn't fit the puzzle. Okay? So here is our 1.5 inch square. And you just, what we're going to do, and sometimes this helps to have something under behind you so that you can see that you're going all the way. We're just going to fold that in half. What I decided is I wanted the floral. I wanted the floral to be my background here, and that my other flower petal would be the more plain side of the designer series paper. Okay, so again, you have to decide what side of the paper you want where. So here we have folded our square on the diagonal to create this triangle. And when you've got your triangles, the easiest way for me to keep track of them is if I have my 90-degree angle to my left here, this upper, if you were to just visualize that this was cut here and that you had 2 more triangles, this triangle up here is the one that I'm going to want to cut away. So what I do is I just, with a pencil, I just put an X that this is the triangle that I want to cut away. If I cut away this one, it's not going to flow with the pattern of the quilt block. Now I realize that if you are not right-handed, and I'm right-handed, that you may have to make this work for you and you may be going a different direction. But have your triangle here with the fold to your right and your 90-degree corner here to your left. Then what we're going to do is we're going to open it up, and I'm just going to use my snips. You could put this in your trimmer and line up your points in the cutting track, and you just want to cut from your score line, this folded line or your score line, to this corner here. But I'm just going to use my snips. I'm not going to make this, bring in too many apparatuses here. So I am just going to put my scissors in the corner there, and I'm just going to eyeball that other corner, and just like I'm cutting straight over to it, but I'm going to stop where I folded it. Okay? You can see that I stopped right where I folded it, and then I am going to cut this triangle out on that score line. Oops, I can go just a little bit further here. And so there, I've cut out my triangle. And we can still use that, so we'll set it aside with the other ones. So now, if you have your 90-degree corner here like this, and you line all of these up, then your flaps should all be going the same direction. Okay, so are we good so far? Okay, do we have any? Okay, I was just looking for questions. So we're good so far. Now what we're going to do, we had all of our pieces. I'm going to leave my silicone mat here because I can see my edges really well. So when I go to line up all of my pieces, I can see that I am to the edge of the paper. I'd like to do a little test run first before I start gluing down. So when we're laying, we're gonna start here in the upper left-hand corner, And I'm going to put that up here in the corner. And I have my flap going away from me. And what I'm going to do is when I do this, I'm going to have this going in the same direction, but I'm just going to pivot it so that it fits all four corners like so. Okay, and right now I'm not gluing anything down yet. I cut that background a little bit larger. So I want to see if I don't want a lot of gaps in between my pieces when I fill them in. So I just want to make sure that, number one, they do fit, but that I have them tight enough, because I can always trim that excess background off. So now you're going to take your these triangles, and you're just going to fit them in the open spaces. And you can have a little gap between these pieces, but if you have a large gap, then you're going to want to just kind of push things together and know that you're going to trim up. You're going to trim some of this either copy paper or grid paper away. See, if I'm holding this, can you see how I have some excess grid paper showing? That's okay. I want to know that before I start gluing down. And then I'm just going to, right now, I am just working in, that can come back that way a little bit. I just want to know ahead of time before I start gluing down where I want to be. And if you have space that is in between your pieces, as long as it's not a big gap, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. This is going to cover things. And then right now I'm just, and then now you'll see how you get your flower. Okay? So then once you're good with that and you've got a good understanding that, okay, I'm going to have a little bit of extra paper I need to trim off, you know that ahead of time. So now what we can do is we can start, I'm just going to work all of these triangles back out. And I can either work from the corners, or I can, know that, okay, if I don't go all the way to the edge, it's okay because my piece of paper is a little larger behind me. We're just going to put glue. Make sure you get your points. We're just going to put some glue on the back. And then you're just going to start putting your pieces down. I'm going to work with just a little bit of my base showing, because I know that I cut it a little bit larger, and I had a good idea that I was going to have some showing, but we're gonna cut all of that off. We're going to square it up when we're done. And the reason why we need to square it up is because we're going to have layers underneath this, and they all need to play nicely together. Now, if you wanted to, you could just start working your puzzle along piece by piece. For me, it just was easier if I got these four corners done first. Then I could just slide in my triangles. But you do whatever is easier for you and what feels natural in your hand. And then our last one. Now that I've done it, John's design, and I don't know if this is actually his design. It was on their pages a card that he designed with authentic papers. But it makes sense now. I'll tell you, I held on to that Pinterest, that pin for the longest time, because even looking at the one picture that he that is on that blog, I still didn't get it. I still did not get how this puzzle worked. It makes sense to me now. So now I'm going to fit in my triangles. And yeah, I'm going to have a little bit of a gap, but you know what? That's okay, because it accommodates the fold that you have created. I just don't think that you want really big gaps. So I think I'm going to open this flap up just so that I can see. If you have too tight of a space, then your folds are getting, they're catching on each other. So there's that one. See how easy this is now? I've made this pattern so difficult for a long time. I think it was meant to be for our project, because it did. It just clicked when it was supposed to click. We'll just work that in. Just kind of keeping my line straight down here. Doesn't have to be perfect. This is pretty forgiving. And my flaps of my petals are not catching on each other. Okay, so this one goes here. The biggest obstacle I found when I first tried this was making sure that I cut off the right triangle that I needed to cut away. I found that I definitely had to mark it, because if you just turned that folded triangle a certain way, you could lose the orientation that you needed. So that was my biggest obstacle, was just making sure I didn't cut the wrong side away. Okay, let's just bring that down. I'm going to kind of turn this towards me so I can see what I'm doing a little bit better. And there we have our 2D flower. What did you think? Easier than it looked? Hi, Donna. I'm so glad that you got to pop in. Oh, Janice. Oh, doctors. Hope all is well. Hopefully this is just a routine. Okay, so there we've got our 2D flower. Now what we're going to do is we're going to trim this and make sure that it's, we need a 3.5 inch square. I'm going to use my trusty little trimmer here. You can use whatever you want. And remember, if you trim one side, in order to keep it square, you're going to have to turn it just one turn the other way and make sure that that side is trimmed also in order to keep it square. Here I've got just a little bit of an edge all the way around. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to concentrate on taking off that, just a sliver of paper, but make sure that I'm square here. And I've got it showing all the way around. since I eyeballed it. So I'm just going to first take off the copy paper, or the grid paper that I can see, and it is just like a smidgen, and then I will look at it again and see if it's square. Oops, just got to make sure my flaps are underneath my little guard here. And one more turn, then I will have all of, it should be, my grid paper should be gone, and I can measure my square and then see what else I might have to take off. So I'm going to come down to my grid paper here and just make sure that it's 3.5 inches. 3.5 by 3.5. So just taking off what I could see gave me my 3.5 inch square. And since that is done, we can set that aside and we can bring in the other components of our card and we can put it together. So my card base is 4 1/4 by 11. I am going to score it in order to make our Z fold. I'm going to score it, and make sure you're using your scoring blade, not your cutting blade. But I am going to score this at 5 1/2 and 2 3/4. And then I'm going to move my paper down to 2 3/4. And score again. So this is creating our Z fold. Give it a nice crease. And then we're going to fold this back like this. Give that a crease. So it lays really nice and flat. So there's our Z fold. We'll go ahead and let's take our insert, which this is 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. The reason why it's 3 7/8, whoops, goes in here, is because when we get done layering our flower here, it's going to be 3 7/8 inch square. And when you fold, okay, I got to make another cut. This needs to be 3 7/8 by 5 1/4. I think I have it at 5 1/2. I did, but for some reason, it's a little too long. Okay. Because when we layer our flower, when this card is folded, we want to be able to hide our insert. So your insert will need to measure whatever your layered square is on the outside. That way you hide it, okay? But if you're wondering why I came up with that weird of a dimension, that's why. It was all because of how I layered the pieces underneath my flower. And I am just going to eyeball this, and you're going to notice that it's not equal. The border is not equal, but just make sure that your sides and your top and bottom look fairly even. And then I'm going to turn this over and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my backing piece on. If your paper has a direction to it, make sure that you are aware of that so that when you put it down after putting glue on it, that it is going the direction that you want. I think I want it this way. I cut this wrong. This should be 4 1/4 by, no, 4 by 5 1/4. And I cut it short. It's still gonna work. I'm gonna leave it. I am going to leave it. And then we'll go ahead and put, I did this. How in the world did I get off on my measurement? Well, whoever wins a card is going to get one that doesn't look like this. I am going to make another one because this should be longer. And actually, 2 1/2 by 4. Bear with me, you guys. Well, that's right. How's come it's looking? That's why. The PDF is right. I cut my... I grabbed a piece that wasn't 4 1/4. This is 4 1/2. So we're good. We're golden. All I got to do is take 1/8 of an inch. All I got to do is take 1/8 of an inch from each side. And it'll look all right. Woof. Oh, Lordy. I was like, Julie, what in the world did you do to these people, to these people who want to make this card? The PDF is right. The piece that I grabbed out of my stash that I assumed was 4 1/4 by 11 was not. It was 4 1/2. Oh, my goodness, do I feel better. Oh, boy, do I feel better. See how much nicer that looks on there? Wow, dodged that one. Okay, lesson learned. Don't assume that because it looks like the shape that you need in your stash that it is. You want to measure, 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 measure. Isn't that the golden rule? Measure twice, cut once, or something like that. I should know better. But oopsies, I am sorry. That was just blowing my mind. I thought, how could you be so off? Okay, so let's flip it over. I'm gonna put my button on the back. Okay. I love the softer feel that the pale papaya is giving my card. Let's bring in our triangle pieces. I'm going to do another prairie point. I just want to make sure that my X's, either I can erase them or I can just hide them. Because if they're going, we're going to start here and work our way down because I can hide that X just by putting the next prairie point on. Just going to put that corner into that corner there. And let's see, what other ones do we have? I'm just going to flip this over so that I have both sides of my designer series paper. I'm just going to cover that X up. Okay, put my next one on. And then all we'll have left to do is layer our quilt block flower. Add our embellishments, and we will be done with the card. So there I put the prairie points again on the other opposite side to balance out where the designer series paper is. So there's our prairie points. Now, let's bring in our two pieces. These are our layering pieces. I wanted to soften the pale papaya. When I tried using even soft succulent, the pale papaya was just still too strong for me. And so by using the one side of the designer series paper, the opposite side, this is more of a blushing bride color than it is pale papaya, although when you've got the darker areas, it goes right into pale papaya look. But I just wanted to keep it soft. So this square here is 3 5/8. I only went up 1/8 of an inch then from my 3.5 inch square because I just want just a little bit of a peekaboo border underneath my flower. So instead of going 1/4 of an inch, I went with 1/8 of an inch. Like I said, just give it that peekaboo color. You can adjust all of these dimensions and make it to your liking. So now I'm just going to, where did my, oh yes. Where did my silicone mat go? And again, this is going to be just a peekaboo border here. And then we're going to layer this piece on to the cardstock square that you had cut. Okay, so we're going to position this so that you have a nice even border all the way around. That. So there is our quilt block, and then when you bring in your card base, you're going to want to center this over the insert on the inside, because again, we want to cover, we don't want to see the insert from the outside of our card. And then when you're looking at this, you can see that you're only going to want to put glue on the left-hand side, maybe 1 inch. You just do not want, you don't want glue coming outside of here, because then it could glue your card shut. So I'm just going to put some glue down. Maybe even 3/4 of an inch. Rather be safe than sorry. Again, make sure that it covers and push it down in place. Make sure you don't have any glue coming out here. You can, if you're using liquid glue, you've got time to kind of fine tune it, get it into position. So here we've only got a couple more steps to do. I stamped hello from the Best Year stamp set. And I found a punch that was small enough that I had that I could just put that in the center. You don't have to put a greeting here. You could put your greeting wherever you want, but I just wanted to pop that up with a dimensional and put that in the center of my flower. And it just simply says hello. This has just really like a nice cottage feel. Soft colors has a nice cottage feel to this card. And then the other thing, in the PDF, I put in there to do a ribbon knot. I did that because I'm terrible at bows. But I practiced a bow, and I actually made one that I'm not that unhappy with. But you can just do a knot, or if you're good at bows, make yourself a bow. Place that on the left side of your card, and then you can trim up your tails. Really, I can't believe that this bow even turned out. I'm all thumbs when I'm trying to wrap ribbon around my fingers. So there's a pretty little bow. This, again, is in the pale papaya. And then I brought out the gemstones. These are called Genial Gems. I thought I would use those. On my other cards, I used the new In Color gems. But we are going to put just a couple of the small rounds on here. Actually, there's like so much going on in my designer series paper. There's not really a lot of open room, but I still wanted to put some embellishments on. So let's put one right there. And maybe here. I don't really know if I need one more. But I don't know if I should put it over here or not. There's not really enough room that I don't know if it would look right in there. I might just keep my things look better in threes, they say. We'll put one more. Maybe just right there. So there's a little bit of bling. We have a little bit of ribbon. We have our 2D quilt block, our flower there. And then when you open it up, you have, here I chose to do some prairie points. And then you have your backing. So what do you all think? Here's 3 different colors. There's the Highland Heather, Pale Papaya, forgive my arm for reaching in. And here I have the base as Evening Evergreen. So what do you think? Can you see them all pretty well? Donna says I should Google fork bow. Okay, I will. Oh, boy. Dora says that she just received the Pale Papaya cardstock, so she's going to try the card with it. Boy, the comments are coming faster and it's moving my, okay, laying a piece of copy paper over the folded pieces to adhere to. Okay. Okay. Oh, Donna says she thinks of me every time she sees a barn quilt. That's so sweet. Alrighty. And every time I go to read a comment, it's popping up, it's moving on me. So I'll have to go back in and read them again. Teresa likes the pale papaya best. It really is so soft. And depending, like, whatever design, you know, I could have brought out Blushing Bride as my card base, I guess. But then I don't have Blushing Bride ribbon. I was trying to coordinate the product. So I really like this one too. And this one I'm going to send to someone who comments on the Facebook Live and or shares it. So tomorrow I'll draw a name and I'll send this one to whoever's name gets spun on the wheel, and wherever it lands, that's where it goes. But yeah, just different, very bold here with the Evening Evergreen, very bold. The Highland Heather softens it a bit. Still bold with using the Evening Evergreen. The reason, let me explain why I did Evening Evergreen. I didn't want to go with black. We used black in the card a couple of weeks ago. So I didn't want to go with black, but I needed it to be dark. Well, the Evening Evergreen, boy, it's almost like a green black. So that's why I was pulling the ink, what looks like how they drew in ink with their watercolor. So I was pulling from that, but I wanted to go dark, but not black. So that's why I chose the Evening Evergreen. Aside from that, it's my favorite color right now. But you can see just how soft it can get by the three different colors. See how, you know, we've got it very bold, and then it gets softer with the Highland Heather and softer with the Pale Papaya. So you got lots and lots of options. So I hope you enjoyed today's card. I'm going to come up with something for next week. Those who got their barn quilt card kits in the mail, notice that the live is going to be Sunday, August 1st. Not Saturday the 31st. I'll be out of town at our 40th class reunion. So I'm just going to move it to Sunday instead of Saturday. So I'll go back and look at everybody's comments. Thanks for spending your Thursday morning with me. And I will talk to everybody and see you soon.